Hello and welcome to Saturday Afternoon Wrestling. My name is Dustin, and it is a great day to talk about wrestling because we are building to a couple huge shows and moments across AEW and WWE. So we are going to run through everything that happened in both of those companies this week. There's all sorts of stuff going on in the ring, outside of the ring, backstage, more drama than you can handle. Wrestling has never been better, and it is truly showing because it feels like there is something going on for just about everyone to latch onto, to enjoy, and to have some fun with. So, before I get into all of that, a couple quick things. I just want to say, as always, if you have anything that I missed, anything you want to hear shouted out or talked about, please, you can leave a comment if you are watching on YouTube, or you can email if you are listening on your favorite podcast platform. I will put the email address in the description and in the show notes. So any way you would like, please feel free to reach out. And then also kind of a out of left field thing that I didn't know if it was going to happen or not, but anyone in the LA area planning on going to the LA Comic-Con in a couple weeks at the LA Convention Center, I will be there. I don't know 100% yet what I'm going to be doing. Because like I said, I'm kind of surprised at how all of this fell into place, but I will be there hanging out, talking wrestling. So if you are planning on going, or even if you're not planning on going, if there's anything that catches your eye or that you'd like to see more of or hear more about, please, same thing, email, leave a comment, let me know. I want to do as much as I can to make it, worth it and to kind of like, I guess, earn it, for lack of a better word. Be like, hey, like, thanks for letting me come cover and hang out at this convention. Like, here's some hopefully really cool content from it. So yeah, let me know if there's anything you'd like to see, anything in particular, and I have a lot of cool things that I'm hoping to pull off as well. So be on the lookout for that. With all that out of the way, let's start with Monday Night Raw. Monday Night Raw had a couple huge standout segments. In particular, we got CM Punk cutting a very serious emotional promo on Drew McIntyre ahead of their Bad Blood Hell in a Cell match, which probably the best promo that Punk has given since he's been back with WWE now. This was the first time it felt like we weren't on a track with him. Like, we weren't on like, okay, we have to go from point A to point B, so now it's time for this one, and now it's time for this part. This was a great, super serious, subdued promo, and I think it was something that he in particular is very good at selling. That, like, somber, everyone's tried to talk me out of this, but I can't because it's beyond all that. I think at one point he said, you're getting in there with the devil, like, be ready. I'm ready to die for this again, which he has said a couple times now, which for whatever reason doesn't lose its impact. So he is firing on all cylinders ahead of this match, and it made it a little weird because then he popped up on NXT like kind of completely tonally different. So it was kind of a weird whiplash if you watched Raw into NXT. But overall, it's an incredible promo segment. And then Drew McIntyre had a little vignette from his house watching where he's kind of like, okay, like, here we go. So that's gonna be an incredible match when we get there in a couple weeks. And then, speaking of good promos, we also had a great promo battle between Jey Uso and Braun Breaker, where Jey Uso showed, I think, a lot of the fire that people, I don't want to say we're waiting for with him, because I feel like he can turn that off and on whenever he needs to, but I think they want to see that more often. So he had the promo with Braun Breaker where he was kind of like, I can't keep losing. I need the singles title. I need this for myself. And Braun Breaker was like, hey, no, you're a tag team guy. This isn't you. And Jey Uso hit him with the, maybe your title reign's going to be as short as your NFL career line, which is like, I guess, you could probably say that about like 100 WWE superstars and Performance Center wrestlers, but every time it cuts every time. And so I'm really excited for that. That's surprisingly not on Bad Blood. That's going to be on Monday Night Raw this week. So this coming Monday. So that's going to be really cool. I don't think they'll have Jey Uso win here at this spot. I would like to see that, but I think we're probably going to start rolling the road to Bloodline Civil War for November Survivor Series, and Jey Uso obviously is going to play a part in that, I would assume. So I think he probably loses here, and then the real story is going to come after the fact, and we'll start to see the wheels turn into how he's going to get back into the swing of things with Jimmy Uso or with Roman and the Bloodline or whatever it might be. But it wasn't all promos. We had a great match between Io Sky and Bianca Belair, where the two of them had plenty of time. They both looked like $1,000,000. They had an incredible back and forth. Two of the most gifted women on the roster, two of the most gifted wrestlers on the roster, to be completely honest. And Io Sky shockingly picked up the win. And it was great. And the crowd was so into it and really into both wrestlers. And that's awesome. It's great to see, these teams getting this time, and obviously be better if it was a women's tag match, because that division has needed a little bit of help. But even still, having a high quality match like this, kind of like centered on the tag titles, is still a lot better than it has been for a long time. And then, speaking of in-ring, completely different breed of match from the awesome 20-minute Bianca match, but we had Bronson Reed and Braun Strowman in like a car crash of a match, like a 3-minute 5-star classic with every big spot you could imagine. These two guys are absolutely firing on all cylinders. Braun Strowman, they're doing the smart thing with him, getting him back to where he was his most over, which was as the dude who was smashing things and flipping cars and all sorts of feats of strength. But now he's actually got a worthy foil in Bronson Reed, who is looking like just as big of a force to be reckoned with. And I'm sure whenever they do have an actual match to like blow off this feud, I'm sure Bronson Reed will be the one that comes out on top, because this has been really a project to establish him. But Braun Strowman's looking pretty good too. So I don't know what you do with him after this. I don't know where he slides back into on the card. It's an interesting spot to be in. But yeah, overall, Raw, I think, was really solid. We continue to build towards Bad Blood. And then on NXT Tuesday, we are building towards, of course, the first CW show live on October 1st from Chicago, with CM Punk in the building. But this last NXT, he was also in the building to make a special announcement for that October 1st show. You can imagine everything NXT has been doing has been building towards that show, and then the October 8th show, the second CW show from St. Louis. We got a couple big developments for both of those shows, actually. It is clear how hard WWE is pushing to stack these CW shows to start this new era of NXT off as strong as they possibly can. So CM Punk did make a guest appearance on this episode of NXT. He had a special announcement to make that did not get made. Before Punk could make his big announcement, he was interrupted by the NXT Women's Champion Roxanne Perez, someone who he is very close with outside of the ring. And they had a fun promo back and forth, and Roxanne seemed a little shaky at times. I don't know if it was like nerves or excitement or what, but she had a great line about liking Drew McIntyre and wanting Drew McIntyre to win. Before getting into like, oh, Punk, you doubt me, you don't think I could beat Julia, you're a phony. And there was a whole thing with them. That match is still, I feel bad because it feels like they're stacking so much onto this card that Julia Roxanne match is moving like lower and lower down their points of emphasis, and I think that's wrong. I think it's going to be probably one of, if not the best match of the night between the two of those guys. So I'm hoping that, this last NXT this coming week really sets the table well for them, because I really do think, like, given the opportunity, they're going to have a great showing. But Punk did come out later in the night, and he announced that he will be the guest referee for the NXT Championship match between Ethan Page, the champion, and Trick Williams, the challenger. This was kind of interesting. I don't really, like, there's no need other than the star power and other than popping the ratings. Like, that's fine. Like, I understand that. But, like, that announcement kind of makes me think that there's a chance Trick does not win, because these guest referee spots are always kind of like the setup for the surprise ending. So CM Punk counting the 1, 2, 3 on Ethan Page pinning Trick Williams after Trick Williams had to count the 1, 2, 3 on Ethan Page beating Joe Hendry. It feels, a little bit hat on a hat similar to having it happen so soon after. But I don't know. Maybe they just want that huge, big feel-good moment of CM Punk holding up Trick Williams' arm in Chicago. Like, I could see that too, because it does feel like this is the spot to pull that trigger on this first big show. But we'll see. But CM Punk getting involved more on Chicago, like, it makes sense. It was always going to happen. I'm glad it's not like a match or anything. I think this will be a good way to have him involved without kind of like taking all of the spotlight from these performers that are trying to establish themselves in front of such a wider audience. So that should be good. It's obviously still like one of the most anticipated matches. Everyone is ready to see Trick and Ethan Page go at it again. But that was not the only match that was announced. We found out that Javon Evans will take on Randy Orton, and that's September 8th. NXT show on the CW in Randy's hometown of St. Louis, Missouri. And all I could think about with that announcement is what kind of RKO is he going to hit Javon Evans with? Is Javon Evans going to jump 3/4 of the way across the ring? Is he going to flip into it? Is he going to run across the ropes and try to like jump and get RKO? Like, I can already imagine just what kind of crazy thing they're going to have in store, because some of Randy's best RKOs are against those super athletic guys, and with how gifted Javon Evans is, I really cannot wait. That was the first thing I saw that and I was like, oh, that's going to be a great match. He's going to hit such a crazy RKO. Maybe that's too much like pressure and like building up the anticipation in my mind, making it feel like it's going to be such this big event, but I don't really care. I want to see a cool, super impressive RKO, and it feels like NXT from St. Louis, Randy Orton's first time on NXT, wrestling a super gifted young wrestler like Javon Evans. Like all the ingredients are there, so like don't blame me for presuming what they're gonna make. And then on like the actual show itself, the non-announcements, the non-promo segments, Tony D'Angelo walked out of a match versus Hammerstone from TNA, where he then revealed to everyone in the D'Angelo family that he is scared and his confidence is shaken after being beaten by Obafemi. And there was a great part where Obafemi was backstage watching all this and was kind of like, oh, he's a broken man. And it was great. It was a great wrinkle. It was a great intriguing setup for what could come next. I was like, oh, wow. Like, Tony D'Angelo's been here forever at this point. It feels like I don't know how much more he could do, but I was super interested in that. I thought that was a really good like tease. But then like 45 minutes later, they followed up on all of it, where he told them all like, yeah, I'm scared of OFME. I'm out of here. And then Adriana Rizzo caught up with him and was like, you got to wrestle him again because like you have to overcome this. And he's like, but what if I lose? And she said, "That so what? You lose." And she cut a really good promo. Overall, I think all of this worked because of how good her promo was at the end of it. But I really thought this was super rushed. This could have been like an episode or two long thing. I was shocked when we cut back and like resolved it all. It feels like this is building towards a Tony D'Angelo beats Obafemi, which on paper I don't hate. I don't know what Obafemi does after that, though. Does he go after the main title and dominate that, or does he go up to the main roster? I think it's clear he's got endless talent. So I'm really curious what his future looks like, what his path is after he loses that first match. And then lastly, Tyrese Halliburton randomly showed up to NXT and helped general manager Ava get Trick Williams and Ethan Page signed to their official contract for that CW show. That whole thing, that whole through line throughout the night was incredible, because we had the incredible moment of Ethan Page making his first entrance of the night, singing Trick Williams' theme and like doing an impression of Booker T's ad libs to the theme. I'm just gonna put that right here so you can hear it for yourself, because I could never do this justice.
Whoop that Trick, whoop that Trick, oh yeah, whoop that Trick, that's Trick Willie. We don't like it.
Ethan Page is a gifted man. I don't know how he did that with a straight face, but it's incredible. So Tyrese Halliburton, of all people, show up, and the Orlando fans at NXT are just booing the hell out of him. And then he makes a couple jokes about the Magic. Oh, if I had to watch the Magic, I'd boo me too. Like really like good heel stuff. It's clear he's a longtime fan of pro wrestling. But the best was Trick Williams was like trying to talk him up and was like, I'm gonna go get my title, just like you got your Olympic title. And the crowd started chanting, "You did nothing," at him, like referencing the fact that he just sat on the bench almost every game. And he's even like posted about it, made jokes about it. It was just really funny. It was such an odd decision that never really got explained, why he was there or why he was the one to get the signatures. But I really enjoyed it. If that's going to be the vibe, is people are just there. If people are just going to be there hanging out, that's fine by me. Honestly, that was it was completely unexpected. I was not ready for that one, or just the heck how vicious the crowd was. Like I did not expect that at all. Like I get that they're rivals, but like I didn't think Halliburton had heat like that, I guess. And then on SmackDown, they tried a couple new things. Some of it worked, some of it didn't. I think the biggest thing, obviously the biggest segment, was Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes meeting at the 50-yard line of the Georgia Tech football field, which is where Roman Reigns went to school and where Cody is from, Georgia. And it's where Bad Blood will be held in a couple weeks. And so they met to talk about their tag match with Solo Sikoa and Jacob Fatu at Bad Blood, which will probably be the main event. And it was fine. It was a little overproduced for my taste. It was really hyper cinematic. And I see what they were trying to do, but it just felt a little too on the nose, overproduced for me personally. I'm sure a lot of people probably loved it because it was such a weird left field thing for them to do for such a for such a highly anticipated segment, the two of them coming together. But even though that didn't work for me, the way they played it off after the fact was huge, and I think it kind of sets some interesting things into motion here for the next couple months as we wait to really kick into this Bloodline Civil War. Because the question that I have continually had is like what do you do with Cody Rhodes while the Bloodline Civil War is happening? Because in my head, it should be Tama Tonga, Tonga Loa, Jacob Fatu, and Solo, and then anyone else who debuts between now and then, versus Roman Reigns, Jimmy and Jay, and Sami Zayn. I think that makes the most sense. I don't want to see Cody Rhodes there. Obviously there's not a problem. Like it wouldn't be a problem if he's there because he's so intrinsically tied to the storyline. But if you're doing a bloodline versus bloodline, it just makes more sense to me to have that lineup there. So to get there, what I think they're doing now is they teased this out perfect because as this video was happening for Roman and Cody meeting, Kevin Owens was shown like super pissed off about it. Like all the times I have helped you fight the bloodline and all of this, and now you're here like just ready to go help them. And it was great. It was a great payoff of that frustration. It was a great callback to them and everything that had happened to that point because honestly, it's impossible to ignore if you've been watching wrestling and watching Cody finish the story. Like all of it built to this. So Kevin Owens was pretty justifiable in his anger and his frustration. And it came back later in the night when Cody Rhodes came out to make the save in the main event segment with a steel chair in hand, and then Kevin Owens took the chair, and there was a second there where everyone thought, oh, he's going to lay Cody Rhodes out, and it did not happen. It did not happen now, but everyone is basically waiting for it, ready for this to happen to see where we go next. And it feels like that's going to be the move to keep Cody away from this Bloodline Civil War, but in a feud that is, high profile enough to stand on its own while this bloodline stuff is spun off doing its thing. So Kevin Owens turning on Cody Rhodes and the two of them having, a multi show feud, multi matches. Like it makes a lot of sense right here. I think that Kevin Owens is justifiable in that frustration, and if he does turn on Cody, it's going to be pretty clear and kind of hard to boo him for that logic. So I don't know if this is all an attempt to push him a little bit more towards that like tweener Stone Cold type persona where he's not quite a full heel because you understand what he's saying, but Cody is still the top babyface, so like you kind of have no choice but to go against him. I really don't know, but if that's what they're doing, if that's the direction that they're going with this, I highly acknowledge that is a great idea. Like that's awesome. That's awesome thinking. It's great ways to call back to the old stories and to make those stories matter a little bit more than just being, okay, this was resolved, done, on to the next thing. It's part of why Drew McIntyre has been so good, honestly, was the Jey Uso coming over to Raw and Drew McIntyre being like, no, this dude ruined my life. Like, I'm not gonna just be cool with him. And like that starting his descent into where he is now, like the biggest menace on the roster. And that was the standout segment, I thought, of SmackDown. There was a fun there was a fun Bayley and Naomi match versus Tiffany Stratton and Nia Jax, which ended with Bayley and Naomi will now go one-on-one next SmackDown for the shot at Nia Jax's title at Bad Blood as well. So they're kind of hinting some heel turn stuff with Naomi there as well, and her frustrations and her wanting to get back to the top and get back to being a champion. So really a lot of things coming into motion here as we get ready for Bad Blood and this huge CW debut. And you know, another couple things that happened outside of the televised programming. One, we got word that WWE will be bringing back Saturday Night Main Event on Peacock. It will be December 14th, and that's going to be a huge event. They had all the old music, all the neon graphics to advertise it. That's going to be amazing. That's going to be a huge I can't even begin to guess what that card might look like, but they are probably going to have as many people as possible on that show. And then there was also a rumor that went around that did get debunked as well, which was that the Lucha Bros had already signed with WWE, and that WWE was already well underway in production on merchandise and masks, and they were going to go straight to the main roster when they arrived. And that was disputed a couple days later. It came out that the Lucha Bros are actually still under contract with AEW, but they are expected to go to WWE as soon as they can. I don't know what the status is for them, though. I believe they had some time added on to Rey Fenix's contract due to his injuries. Or if not officially added on, like it could be added on. So I really don't know. There's a few contract things that are a little murky on the AEW side of things, but we will get to that in a second. First off, AEW Dynamite this week, I don't think it was the best Dynamite I've ever seen, but we're building towards Grand Slam, which will be this coming Wednesday. It's like I said, so many things happening all the time. So AEW Grand Slam from Arthur Ashe Stadium will be happening this Wednesday. There are some huge matches already announced, and as you can imagine, Dynamite was spent building towards this again because these big like midweek shows are, you know, not quite pay-per-view level, but it's clear that they put a lot of emphasis on putting together some strong, memorable cards for these big moments. And this show kind of built towards that a little bit more. We had a huge trios match in the main event with the Young Bucks taking on Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher and Takeshita. I should say the Elite, the Young Bucks and Okada, taking on Fletcher, Ospreay, and Takeshita. And it was great. Takeshita still does not like Will Ospreay, and they still were able to put aside their differences and have a great match, which the babyfaces win and set up with all the momentum ahead of Fletcher and Ospreay taking on the Young Bucks for the tag titles at Grand Slam. Something that I still don't think they're going to win, but like every time I try to sit down and say they're definitely not going to win, they are too popular and too good to completely write off winning the titles. Like it'd be such an interesting dynamic within this Don Callis family group where Takeshita is like itching to break off and be the biggest babyface in the company. Like it is ready, it is there anytime. So I'm sure this is probably going to go into like more brutal, darker heels turn for Takeshita, if anything. So we'll see what happens. I'm enjoying the ride though. And then we also had an Orange Cassidy, Chris Jericho match to kick off the show that I really think people are going to be split on. I think it's either going to be like you enjoyed it or it was the worst thing you've ever seen because it was about 23 minutes. It was a 2-segment opening match with tons of interference and back and forth. But Orange Cassidy gets the win. He knocks out Chris Jericho with an orange punch holding a roll of quarters, I think it was. And it just kind of was there to set up more trios matches and more combinations of this feud to continue. So Orange Cassidy and the conglomeration are firmly ensconced in the Jericho vortex right now. Jericho, who is still somehow getting please retire chants every single match he has, which is incredible. I can't believe the crowd is that committed to the bit. But like I said, it didn't quite work for me. I know if others enjoyed it, that's totally cool. I can understand why. I think Orange Cassidy is one of the best wrestlers on that roster and really in the world right now. I just didn't think this was quite as good as their first match was a few years back. But it was smart to hold off on doing this again and running it into the ground, because it did feel like a fresh matchup. It's kind of tough to get, super excited about Chris Jericho feuds now, depending on what your mileage with him actually is. And then, like I said, we did have some contract stuff. Reportedly, Miro has asked for his release. He has had all sorts of start and stop booking. He has reportedly turned down a lot of ideas for him creatively. Who knows what the actual truth is? We probably will not know ever. I would assume these sides will keep everything to themselves. Obviously, AEW does not have to grant his request for a release. That kind of seems to be where we're at with Ricky Starks, who trends on Twitter like every other day. It feels like, for me, like with people just speculating and wanting him like back on programming, or left to sign with another company, but they've been pretty tight-lipped about it. That's why I was kind of surprised that we got a resolution to this Lucha Bros WWE, AEW back and forth so quickly. Like, I felt like something that they would have been fine to just leave out there. But reportedly, the Lucha Bros have said, like, well, hey, we're ready and available to work whenever you need us, if you need us. AEW is just opting to not use them. And I don't know if that's what it is with Miro and with Ricky Starks as well, because there's just no updates on it. There's no clarity around it. But I think it's interesting. I think it's disappointing, because obviously these guys are, originals to the company, and not Miro, but like these other guys, had the possibility to be homegrown giant stars, and it feels like they kind of just, were either victims of bad circumstances, bad timing, or just kind of always found themselves being the one that got moved down the card in favor for someone else. And that actually ties into the last thing I want to talk about, or one of the last things I want to talk about from AEW this week. That was this Jon Moxley segment with, I don't know if they're the Blackpool Combat Club still, or if they have a new name. This new group Jon Moxley has, with Claudio, with Pac, and with Marina Shafir, came out to cut a promo, and were interrupted by Private Party and Commander, and proceeded to destroy all of these guys before smashing Isaiah Cassidy's hand with a hammer in a spot that was actually really well done. It looked super convincing. But while this was all happening, Moxley got the mic and he started cutting a promo about how Private Party have all the potential in the world. They've been with AEW for 5 years, but they're in the same exact spot now that they were 5 years ago. And it was a brutal brutal promo, and it pointed out a lot of flaws. And I'm interested about this, and I think it's such a tightrope to walk, because on the one hand, everyone knows that that's the truth. Everyone knows that Private Party has had moments, and then they very quickly get pushed right back down the card in favor of whatever else, and then wait to get that look again. And everyone knows what he is saying has fact to it. But I don't know if this is the right move, because it feels like it puts a lot of criticism and a lot of attention on Tony Khan's storylines, or his lack of cohesion or development on storylines. So I think it's going to be a really nimble tightrope to walk. But I think the intensity and the quality of promos we've seen from Jon Moxley so far around this new character, it looks like he's locked all the way in. And I think that's probably the biggest asset to all of this, is that he's clearly locked in and wanting to absolutely crush this. I just thought it was such an interesting idea to so pointedly display, like, you're in the same spot you were 5 years ago, despite having all the talent and potential in the world. Like, crowds are going to be like, yeah, like, that's a good point. Why aren't they getting these opportunities? Just feels like it could go sideways very fast. And if this is what this group is going to be, is like going around and just destroying AEW originals that have not met their potential yet, that's incredible. Hats off to Moxley if that's the direction that this is going, because that's pretty cool. Like, that's something I'm very excited to see develop more and more weekly. And then finally, we found out that on the 5th anniversary episode of AEW Dynamite, which I believe will be 2 weeks from now, Wednesday, October 2nd, the night after the CW debut of NXT, we will have Ricochet taking on Will Ospreay for the AEW International title, which I don't know if this will just be given away for free. I don't know if this will be like a 10-minute match with a schmozzy finish. I have no idea what to expect, but I know that this was the match on the books for Ricochet, as soon as he signed with the company, everyone was ready for Ricochet Ospreay 2. Ospreay has been hyping it up, honestly. Like, even before Ricochet had signed, Ospreay was like, I'd love to see him. I'd love to give the chance to do that again. So they are clearly getting started with that sooner rather than later, and I think it's a smart idea because you never know. And it's kind of just a testament to how AEW has done things, where people come in and immediately we start getting those big high level matches. And I feel like this is the kind of match where, it doesn't matter what happens. We can always kind of come back to it whenever we need to, because those guys are that talented and their chemistry is that good. So the fact that we have that in 2 weeks to look forward to is super exciting. And then finally, I think the main thing I wanted to talk about is this AEW media rights deal, which has been so talked about, so much back and forth. Still nothing is official, but now outlets and companies are starting to put out word that it is basically like 99% done. And what this new deal is looking like is it's looking like AEW will have 3 shows. They will have AEW Dynamite, they will have AEW Collision, and they will have AEW Shockwave, which is reportedly being shopped around separately from Collision and Dynamite, and might be something that airs on like an FS1 instead of on Turner. So there are a couple different things at play here with this deal and who is going to get what. It is reported that the deal is going to be somewhere around $175 million, which is a huge, huge number for them. It's a very nice get. It's a good get for Warner Brothers for continuing to, grow with them and to continuing to platform them. And then, separately from all of that, there was a report that there's another deal in the works that completely different numbers. Those aren't known yet, but completely different numbers and circumstances. But there's another deal in the works to get all AEW pay-per-views onto HBO Max. So, like Peacock has had all of the WWE pay-per-views, Max would have all of the AEW ones. And this is reportedly already a done deal and will start in January 2025, or could start sooner if both sides would like to. And this wouldn't impede on traditional buying pay-per-views or the Fight app or YouTube or whatever you use, Bleacher Report. Those would not be impacted still. You would just have another option for watching them, which would be huge. Obviously, putting them on HBO Max would be a massive increase in viewership. Overall, I think, when this gets announced, if it's pretty close to what these parameters are, that's a huge positive for AEW, obviously, for the wrestling industry overall, because I think wrestling is better when we have companies like this. We have viable, big companies like this that can kind of push each other to be better, and have just such a wealth of talent. I'm curious what an AEW FS1 show would look like. If it would just be another, in place of Rampage, if Rampage completely goes away, if they're going to keep all the nights the same, if it'll be Wednesday night Dynamite, Collision on Saturday maybe still, and then who knows with Shockwave, whatever that would end up being. There are supposedly also different discussions about different types of media as well, different types of shows and collaborations, so it would not just be the main wrestling shows and the pay-per-views. All in all, it really feels like part of the reason this is taking so long is because there's going to be a lot of different things to like split apart and break down and kind of like comb through. So I think overall, like I said, no matter what, it's going to be a good deal, because if it keeps AEW prospering and allows them to continue to try to grow, then that's a good thing. I think it's better to have 2 good wrestling companies than one struggling and one like monopoly. So I'm thrilled for them. I hope it gets announced officially finally at some point. It could happen at any time, honestly, based on like how people are reporting about it. But it means they will stay on TNT. We will get a new show probably on FS1, and if the pay-per-views are all streaming, like that's kind of all I need to hear to be like, oh yeah, this is a win. I can watch all the pay-per-views without having to, spend the money and fight the Bleacher Report app for like a quality stream like signal. Yeah, I will take that. And it shows a lot of faith from those companies in AEW as a product. And I don't know if that would mean anything impacting, like the level of violence, the level of extreme that they kind of tend to go to, or if they would still be free reign on all of that. I'd be really curious to see what that means for the content side of things. I would assume nothing, because you're kind of like, that's part of what you're buying. If you're Warner Bros. Or if you're FS1 or anything, like you want that like cutting edge, different type of thing. Like So I can't imagine that that would be anything. I would love to hear what this negotiation process would be. Like, they had the Tony Khan mini documentary on NFL Network where they like followed a day in his life, and they showed him like sticking to kayfabe with the neck brace and selling the effects when that happened on AEW around the time of the NFL draft. It's really interesting, and you know, I know there's a lot of jokes to be made about someone like Tony Khan, but at the end of the day, I think he's just a big wrestling fan that has the means to go and put on these shows, and so kind of hard to really truly hate or root against. Do I think, you know, sometimes it's a little too much? Yeah, but I'm never going to be like, I want this company to fail. Like, I enjoy having multiple companies that I can watch throughout the weeks and kind of like compare and contrast and see such different styles. So if that's what this means, if this means we're locking that in for a few more years, I'm very happy to see that. But let me know what you're most excited for from this deal. Is it the pay-per-views on Max? Is it a new show possibly coming out? Is it refining what Dynamite might be, kind of giving them a bit more renewed lease on life with a new deal? Let me know. Let me know what you are most excited for, either in the comments or email, like I said earlier. And I think honestly, that's everything. Next week is going to be, again, another huge week. We have got AEW Grand Slam from Arthur Ashe. We have got the last NXT show on USA. And next Wednesday, we have the debut of the Netflix documentary produced by, I believe, Ringer Films, all about Vince McMahon, which is probably going to be intense. I will watch that and determine if that's something I want to like do a full video for, or just kind of bring up here on the next episode. So keep your eyes out for that. Like I said before, if there's anything I missed, if there's anything you'd like to see given a special shout out or mentioned, or anything you think worth bringing up, please let me know. I try to watch as much as I can. I know I do not always succeed in doing that. So let me know if there's anything else. And finally, sorry for all of the ending announcements, but like I said before as well, I will be at the LA Comic Con in 2 weeks. Let me know if you are going or if there's anything specific you would like to see, and I will hopefully see you there. So thank you, everybody, for watching, listening, anything like that. I appreciate all of the support. This type of stuff would not be possible without that, and it means a ton. It is really cool to see. So thank you to everyone. I hope everyone has a good rest of the weekend and enjoy the week. I'll see you next week.